Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RevOps Demos That Don't Suck, where we take product and services demos with some of the leading technology and services providers out there that are delivering value to folks in revenue operations so that you can get a sense of who they are and what they do without having to go through a demo for yourself. And today we are sitting down with Noah Berk, who is the Co-CEO over at Aptitude 8. And Aptitude 8 is an elite HubSpot solutions partner, the #2 global partner of the year, and HubSpot's leading technical consultancy firm. And so this is going to be a bit of a different spin on our normal technology product demos, as they are, again, one of the leading technology consultancies in the HubSpot ecosystem. So Noah, welcome, my friend. Tell us a little bit more about Aptitude 8 before we dive into some of the other questions that I have for you today.
Absolutely. So great to be here. Thank you for having me on. A little bit about the history of Aptitude 8. Aptitude 8 is actually, in its current incarnation, is a combination of two HubSpot elite partners that came together, which we can refer to as Legacy Aptitude 8 and also Legacy OBO Group, where we identified that merging these two elite HubSpot partners would help produce a lot of capabilities that our clients are looking for, especially in the upmarket enterprise space. And hence we decided to merge organizations, and we ended up keeping the Aptitude 8 name, and here we are today. So, and after the merger, #2 global of the year, as you mentioned earlier, HubSpot's leading technical consultancy for both mid-market and upmarket enterprise clients. It's been a really fun journey so far, and we're kind of on this whole HubSpot orange wave that we're still driving through.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know we at RevOps Co-op, big HubSpot fans. We run all of our stuff on HubSpot. But before we get into some of the services and offerings that you all deliver, I guess tell us a little bit about the problem space. And ultimately, maybe you mentioned kind of pre-merger, the two firms. Like, what were the firms set out to solve for people in revenue operations? What are you set out to solve for today? What does life look like for a revenue operator who, is like not an Aptitude 8 kind of client or customer today? What are some of those problems that they might be experiencing?
Yeah, so early on, before we decided to do the merger, I think both companies recognize HubSpot is becoming much more configurable and complex. You can do a lot more with it. And what we decided to do is really go all in on HubSpot and say, okay, we need to know everything about the system to be able to help and support our clients, to be able to leverage it to its fullest ability. And really, what's happening right now is a lot of RevOps leaders are simply handed HubSpot and told, go figure it out. Maybe they're migrating from some sort of legacy system like a Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, and they need a plan but don't have one. And that's really where we ended up coming in. And at Aptitude 8, what we do is we really help teams navigate how to have HubSpot work for their business model, their data, and really their go-to-market motion, whether it's sales, service, or marketing. And so a lot of things that we end up helping these individuals think through is we start with this really deep discovery. And I think oftentimes when you take on projects like this, you tend to forget about the why. Like, why are you even doing this in the first place? And we always tend to start there because that ends up becoming our guiding light for the entire project, all the way from the initial phases to how we deliver it for clients. So that includes everything from starting off with a deep discovery and mapping before we even touch a workflow, before we even put hands to keyboard. We talk to your teams, we talk to sales, marketing, service, and the leaders across. We audit your systems. And we also help you think through the architect of the ideal state. What's this going to look like ultimately when it's done? Whether it's a full migration, a multi-entity rollout, or you're just looking to simply make things better, we help build and orchestrate that path. Before us, there's generally a lot of confusion. Maybe there's siloed teams and poor visibility. After us, you will have a connected system. You will have a custom CRM architecture that meets the needs of your organization. You'll have clear dashboards. You'll have a HubSpot instance that actually supports your revenue motion. So we're really there to help these individuals and RevOps leaders really get the most out of HubSpot. And with scale and merging these two companies together, we're able to achieve our goal better than ever before.
Yeah, I love the one thing you mentioned there that really resonated with me and that I loved was you are giving people the ability for the system to work for their business model. And I think far too often operators feel like you need to make your business model work with the system, right? It's the other way around. And so you got to like configure the way you do business to what the system allows you to do, when in reality, the tools, the CRM and marketing automation tool, HubSpot, is there to support the way that you do business, right? It's not the other way around, but so often we fall into the trap of having that in reverse.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Ultimately, in the end, it goes back to the why. Why are we even doing this project in the first place? And I think oftentimes people tend to forget that reason. It's not because you want a brand new marketing automation, CRM, or customer service tool. No, you're trying to increase XYZ revenue. You're trying to add a force multiplier. You're trying to hit a particular goal for the organization. None of which states you need a CRM to do it, but all of which you know you need some sort of system to support that goal. And that's why we always start with the why whenever we take on projects like this or engagements, literally dictating to what we need to accomplish and do for you. It should not simply be you need to fit within this particular data model of how the system's been architected. No, the system needs to meet your needs to accomplish your why.
Yeah. So could you give us a couple of examples of how you all solve some of those problems? And then I'd be curious to, I know as a firm and obviously as a number 2 global partner of the year and HubSpot's leading technical consultancy, that you probably see a lot of different companies and use cases. And I'd be very curious to hear some of the off the wall things that you've done. But then also, what are some of the most common things that you do for your customers? What sort of projects or work are the things that kind of come up that are really your bread and butter and your sweet spot?
If I had to kind of nail the 3, one would be rip and replace the system into HubSpot. Hey, you're on Salesforce, you've been on it for 10 years, you're at the end of your rope, maybe your data is messy, your team hates it, you can't get anything you want out of it, it's expensive to make changes, and you're like, listen, I need a better system at this point in time. So oftentimes we're working with companies to go ahead and evaluate their existing architecture, their existing systems, and say, not just how do we move you into HubSpot, but how does your organization perform better inside this tool? It's not simply a one-to-one move, it's a one-to-improvement move that we're looking to be able to make. So that's a pretty common use case. Another one is you want to integrate HubSpot with X. It could be a data warehouse. It could be, heck, you may not want to move your sales team off of Salesforce for one reason or another, but you want your marketing team off of it. But you still need to be able to integrate it. Maybe you need to be able to integrate it with your NetSuite or some sort of ERP or whatever you name it. You want to be able to integrate. So that's another really common use case. And the third one we tend to see is like optimization. You already have these systems and you're trying to figure out how do we get the most out of them for our teams. And oftentimes organizations tend to get into the problem where they bought a system but without thinking about the why, which I stated earlier. Why are we doing this in the first place? And you tend to get a Frankenstein of a mess. This happens no matter really what system you have, because just over time businesses evolve, organizations evolve and change, and you tend to find yourself in a situation, it's not necessarily a system issue, it's a process issue, a change management that we need to be able to go through, and understanding what are the goals of the organization today versus what they were in the past, and how do we get you to that new spot where you need to be. And so those are kind of like the 3 buckets, I would say, in terms of what we generally tend to see as an organization. Of course, we also have a strategy practice whereby companies are like, hey, raise their hand. Can I even migrate from Salesforce to HubSpot? Can you guys help me with an evaluation to really identify all of our needs, our business process, what needs to happen in the system? So we actually have a strategy practice that will actually help people. They'll either say, yay, it can be done, or nay, it can't be done. And that way, before making a big investment or a big purchase, you have that peace of mind, like, yes, this is exactly, it can be done, and here's what the benefits for the organization will be. So those tend to be the buckets that we work in the majority of the time.
Yeah. What's one of the most interesting non-standard clients that you've worked with? Because I think this is the other thing that we're all curious about, is a lot of us work in B2B technology. And so we have this mindset that the rest of the world is just, I'm sure you have a lot of clients outside of B2B technology. I think actually I remember even seeing like a year or 2 ago, I think it was maybe Connor posted something about a horse breeder that you had as a client, like something like that. So like, just what's the most, again, like either non-standard sort of project or client that you've kind of worked with and had to think about how to configure HubSpot for?
So I think I'll even take maybe a broader stance on this particular question, which is, Yes, almost every company has some sort of unique requirement or need. HubSpot out of the box, if you're a one-person sales team, I mean, heck, you can deploy it yourself. It's not that complicated. What gets complicated is when you start talking about thousands of sales reps, when you start talking about millions of contacts, when you start talking about leveraging all the tools and capabilities inside the system. It's not just I need to set up HubSpot. It's a business process change management play. Now you got to be able to incorporate all these teams and all these people. I mean, we have projects right now that we're essentially incorporating, like for a large insurance organization with between 5 to 10,000 seats, bringing in hundreds of agencies into one platform and be able to have them all work in a way where you have the right permission set up, the right configuration set up, the right dashboards for each and every part of their business, the path of their journey of how they work with their customers. And so what ends up becoming in these particular scenarios is the reason why I share this as an example is when you start dealing with enterprises, it's all unique. The challenges they have, the systems they're using, the integrations that they need to make, half the time you're integrating with a homegrown system that you need to be able to work with their technology development team to actually be able to integrate it. The horse breeder is a great one because it's really fascinating. You're like, what is that system we're integrating with? And I think that's actually something really unique about Aptitude 8. A lot of times people say, well, have you integrated with X? Well, oftentimes, yes, but if not, really where our skill set comes in is understanding how to integrate it to get the most out of HubSpot. And so there really is no system out there that we shy away from simply because we've never had a failed project where we can't integrate and get the data in for our clients. The reason why I say that is because our process always starts with a solution architect. This is probably something that's really unique about Aptitude 8 is we made the investments in pre-sales solution architects who are embedded into every single one of our engagements because we don't just sell hours. We scope real systems. We guide the client to what HubSpot can do, even if they've been told otherwise. We're like, this is what you can do with it, for better or worse, what you can get the most out of it. When I look at the clients that we work with, and we work with everyone from dealers to insurance to finance and manufacturing, SaaS, you name it, industry out there, associations, nonprofits, every single one of them has a unique need that they're trying to solve for. And they need to feel confident that whoever they pick to help them configure the platform is going to help them meet their goals. Again, like I said at the top of the call, what is the why and how can they achieve that?
Yeah, that's great. So we've talked a lot about HubSpot naturally. Are there things you don't do? So what, and if there are, what are those things?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I'm glad that you asked that. I think some of the things that we don't do, let's start there because I think that's really important. We are not a marketing agency. And I think that's critical because in the HubSpot ecosystem, a lot of the companies who were founded started as marketing agencies and they provide a lot of marketing work. So they're going to do stuff like paid media, PPC, SEO, email campaigns. They'll write your email campaigns. That is not us. We will not do that for you. We're strictly a technical consultancy. We don't replace your RevOps leader. We help them move faster. We architect and implement and scale HubSpot for complex teams because that's our swim lane. The analogy I like to give, at one point in my career, I was a recruiter and I used to recruit project managers for building large buildings. I remember one time someone said to me, hey, listen, you have all these individuals coming in. They built 6, 8-story buildings. I need someone to build a 50-story building. And you would say, well, what's the difference? They can build a building. What's the difference between one store to another, a 6-story to 50-story? And they said, it is literally night and day. It's not even the same project. And what we've done is we focus on where the air is thin, the more complex projects where change management business process is critical. And where we play oftentimes is where most organizations don't because most of them are marketing organizations and they're trying to run 2 organizations in one. How do we deliver marketing services and how do we deliver highly technical projects? And it requires an entirely different motion, an entirely different skill set, an entirely different way that you org the department and the team and the company. And so what we do is we really focus on where the air is thin and we help co-sell with HubSpot reps to help them win more and implement faster as part of kind of our approach of what we do.
Yeah. And so, all right. So with that in mind, technical consultancy, not a marketing agency, you're not a replacement for RevOps. So let's talk about the things you are a good fit for and specifically who. So I know you mentioned a little bit about as companies get larger and they have hundreds, thousands of seats, right? These things get really complex. You talked a little bit about all the different industries that you all work and operate in, but who I guess, can you give us a sense for maybe some examples of clients that you've had, the type of work you've done for them? And then what is a ideal fit sort of customer look like for you? Are there use cases or examples where early stage companies, startups, smaller companies are working with you, mid-market, enterprise only? Give us some sense of kind of who's typically a good fit for Aptitude.
Yeah, I think those are great questions. So we're really the go-to technical partner for HubSpot's mid-market and enterprise deals. Oftentimes, it's organizations with 200 plus employees. There's multiple sales motions going on. They're trying to configure sales, marketing, and service together. These are generally complex. There's oftentimes integrations at play. Oftentimes, if we're migrating, it's a lot of data, a lot of systems, a lot of people, a lot of change management and process management that we're working through. We did touch base a little bit on some of the industries. It could be SaaS, it could be tech, it could be healthcare, associations, insurances, nonprofits, and manufacturing. Our clients can run everyone from Lenovo, SoundCloud, Bluetooth, World Insurance Associates, Notion, ISSA, to HubSpot themselves. We have a lot more prominent clients out there too, which is one of the really fascinating things. Some of these companies we can't even necessarily mention, but you would recognize them as very important companies in the AI space that we also work with. The reason why is we tend to be brought in not just given a reputation, but oftentimes because these are what are considered marquee clients for HubSpot. And they need to know that the work is being done correctly. Oftentimes we get that call from HubSpot saying, hey, listen, I have this really important client. It's a very complex need. We need the best to be able to work on it. Aptitude, are you available to be able to do it? So it kind of runs a gamut there, but generally they're mid-market to enterprise. And, we could be working with everyone from the RevOps leader at that organization to a CMO to a chief revenue officer, all up to a CEO and CTO. Now, you did ask earlier, do we work with startups? We generally tend to not work with direct startups, partly because they're a startup. They only have minimal needs. Yeah. They're generally not often very complex. Now, there are scenarios where they have very complex needs. So even if they don't necessarily fit in that criteria of mid-market enterprise, their needs are still really complex. Even if the amount of software they're buying isn't a lot, the actual requirements behind what they're trying to do is still significant.
Yeah. Like you said, it's more based on the complexity of the work that needs to be done and the problem that you're trying to solve, which, like everything, means there's going to be some exceptions, maybe some smaller, earlier stage companies that have those complex use cases, but more than likely, complexity comes with scale, and the larger you are, the more complexity you're going to have, which means upper end of mid-market and enterprise is where most of the clients are going to be.
And that tends to be what we see. And oftentimes our clients stick with us for years because these are such complex projects. It's interesting that a lot of these organizations, we tend to be the continuity because team members change, people change. We tend to still be there. We know what's going on. We have large companies like eXp Realty, one of the largest real estate organizations in the world. Very complex needs, a lot of different type of buyers, not just real estate agents are trying to bring on board, but also the consumer as well, businesses and so forth and so on. It just requires a lot of people to understand kind of how to make it work. I'm sure we'll get into more about how we're structured and how things are different over here.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the ways that you work with your customers. So let's first think about how you structure your projects. Do you typically work with people on a project by project basis? Are they signing up for a time-bound engagement like 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? Are they signing up for usage based where it's like X dollars per hour and you decide how much you use? How do you typically structure your teams, your projects? How do you typically work with some of the clients, for example, that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so maybe it start by saying like how we're actually structured internally, and I'll get into actually how we structure these clients. So we really have 3 types of teams. We have we'll call our managed services team, who will support clients on more of a retainer basis or a certain set number of hours they're going to work each and every month for that client. Oftentimes that happens post-project. A company will come in, we'll start off with an engagement, a project. It goes to one of two teams. It'll either go to our core team or our enterprise team. And the reason why I talk about that is because we just talked about earlier how there's a difference between building a 6-story building and a 50-story building. Our enterprise teams are really structured whereby we staff people to projects and there's a bench, whereas our core teams, we put a project on a team. And then throughout all of this is once we complete that project, whether enterprise or core, we actually bring in our recurring team, our managed services team, who will actually help out with the QA, the final steps of the process to get the project across the finish line, and then we'll help continue to work with that client for all their needs moving forward. But our process starts in the sales stage where we're really focused on our solution architects, pre-sale solution architects. We scope systems and we guide clients like what I mentioned earlier that they can do. So the very first thing we do is we generally will come up with a estimate, and these are very thorough detailed scopes. You have everything from assumptions to pathways to our epic itself to a range of how long it's going to take to be able to complete a particular task. Now, we also do something called reference-based project forecasting. So we look at past projects to inform how much time it's going to take to be able to complete a future project. And that's really critically important now because I think oftentimes there is this concept as the planning fallacy by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, where people tend to overestimate their own capabilities and underestimate the degree of difficulty. And it's important that we have a thorough foundation of what it really takes to drive and get a project across that finish line. And so we use this information to inform how we build out our scopes for clients. So when we put together a scope for a client, it is everything from what needs to get done, the timeline, to expectations, to who's in charge of what, really all the pieces necessary for the client to feel confident in the solution that we're recommending and the various pathways. We also give ranges. We also let the client know where we have certainty on a particular item, where other items we have less certainty on because either we haven't seen that particular use case or the client is unsure themselves about what they're trying to do. So we do build in the ability to be able to manage and meet those needs of the client with a certain degree of uncertainty. The other thing we always aim for is on time, on budget projects. So what often gets lost in all of this is project management, especially on enterprise. Every project has a project manager, and we are as much project management team organization as we are as a HubSpot technical consultancy, because our clients want the certainty of that project getting done on time and successfully completed versus simply just trying to go for the least expensive price. We sell certainty. We sell delivering that project successfully for them, both with how we go ahead and we scope it to the team that's put on. Oftentimes, we are selling hours. We're always showing low estimate, high estimate. We generally start with the middle range. What we end up doing if we understand or requirements change throughout that engagement, we'll do a change order to reflect whatever that change is. So we do set the expectation for the client. It could come in at the low end, it could come at the high end. We'll start with the middle, but just knowing this is based upon all the information we have today, we will be upfront and transparent with you about what the status of the project, where it is, and when those change orders are required based upon a requirement change. So those are some of the really big things that we focus on as an organization to make sure that the client understands what we're doing and also feels a sense of confidence that this is the team to solve it for me. This is the team to get across the finish line. Because ultimately in the end, when we go back to the why and they're saying, hey, we're trying to increase revenue from 5 to 10 million with this particular organization and team, they care more about the outcome than the cost. I'm not saying cost is irrelevant, but the certainty of achieving that outcome is even a higher priority for those organizations.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. You mentioned before that when HubSpot has marquee or premier clients, customers that they're working with, they go to you all for help because they know the type of value and services and delivery that you all are going to have. And so the certainty aspect and the ability to drive the outcome that the client is ultimately looking for is really the value exchange, right? Like that's the main thing they're looking for. It's not that they just want the system to be able to do X. It's they want the system to be able to do X because that's going to get them from 5 to 10, like you just mentioned.
Correct. And
yeah.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah. So if we think about ROI, is there anything else you'd want to add outside of what we just talked about with like kind of certainty and outcome that people are looking to drive on the value side, and then obviously the kind of the flexibility of how you all work with people, the really in-depth throwaway you put together, the cost or the investment analysis for them?
Yeah, I think what we really focus on is faster time to value. HubSpot up and running the most efficient way possible to achieve the outcomes. Sometimes clients don't want to hear it's going to take 3 months or 6 months to be able to achieve the project, but we are being very transparent about the time it takes given our past experience. And I think that's a really important thing to note here. I think a lot of the benefit of when we merge our organizations is combined, we've done over 1,000 projects. I've worked with over 1,000 clients at this point in time and thousands of projects. And you have all this data to inform how we do things better, and that our internal teams are also able to leverage to be able to help them inform of how to deliver better projects for our clients. So you do have this degree of certainty when you work with an organization like Aptitude 8. Oftentimes, our goal here is RevOps teams spend less time cleaning data and more time driving growth. This is a big thing that RevOps are looking for. You want your sales teams to see faster quote times, cleaner handoffs, better pipeline visibility. You want execs to get real-time dashboards, better forecasting they can trust. The big thing about something like HubSpot and Teams is really what you're ultimately achieving in the end is a system that's working, again, for the business based upon business needs versus trying to fit something into a round peg into a square hole. Actually, no, that does work. A square peg into a round hole. Yeah. Sometimes my analogies and metaphors are right on, other times
Close
they're not.
Enough. I got.
Yeah, and I think we're probably one of only a handful, or really one of only, that focus on designing and building enterprise-grade systems at scale for clients. We're more aligned with your traditional SI in terms of how we approach solving for our clients. And this is because of the maturity of the HubSpot system itself has gotten so mature, so capable, so configurable. Companies are recognizing I can use this for my entire organization. So from the sales process to delivery, we have pre-sale solution architects. We have post-sale solution architects. We call them kind of like, think of our special forces. We have dev teams. We are selling people, process, and systems ultimately in the end. We have a methodology that ensures our client success, so what we build actually works the way they want it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it sounds like a huge value add for companies and any operators, revenue operators at those companies as well. If you had to pick just one thing that differentiates you versus any other technical consultancy firms out there, or the non-services way of doing this, which is like, I'll do it myself, right? What's the one thing that you would pick? And don't cheat on this and use a big run-on sentence to say like 20 things. I want you to pick just one thing. What's the one differentiator that Aptitude 8 has above any alternative?
I will say experience, and experience leads to certainty.
Yeah.
When you have the best team, the best talent, the best organization, the best process, the best methodology, you have the experience. What differentiates us and the reason why companies hire us is they want certainty that this project's going to be delivered successfully. And we've proven that time and time again. And we are truly the only one, I would say, in the ecosystem who's built to deliver projects like this from the ground up.
Yeah. I mean, a lead HubSpot solutions partner and HubSpot's leading technical consultancy firm who also does technical consultancy work for HubSpot. I think that kind of says it all. So last question for you, if someone out there wants to get in touch, chat with you about some of the problems they have, some of the work that maybe they could use some help on, what's the best way for them to get in touch and chat, connect with the Aptitude 8 team?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, feel free to visit our website at aptitude8.com. Feel free to fill out a form, be able to get in touch with our team. You can also reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. I'm out there. So feel free to ping me, send me a DM. And you can also email me. I have the easiest email address in the world, hence being a co-CEO. It's just noah@aptitude8.com. I'm happy to help you, happy to get in touch with one of our teams. We have a fantastic group of AEs and solution architects and team members who are eager and wanting to help support you all. I would love to be of service. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Noah, thank you very much for kind of joining, dropping some knowledge on us, telling us all about Aptitude 8 and the work that you all do. I really appreciate it. But that's all I got for you, my friend, so I'll let you run. Thank you so much.